Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster, and, of course, my esteemed colleague, the co-host with the most, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great today. Looking forward to it. We got our favorite guest on today, the idiot from Dallas.
I thought we had Anthony on. All right, so our special guest today on Friday Football Frenzy to try to pick the games against us, which now through 18 weeks, nobody has won except for me and Steve, and Steve's only won once. Let me welcome from the FF Face-Off, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me again.
All right, Steve.
Thanks for having us, Anthony. Hell.
Well, I mean, I didn't think we were going to have Anthony because he wouldn't answer the damn phone for a while.
I know. We were about ready to get another guest.
I thought maybe it was like most of these shows go and everybody gets tired of Risley's crap and then we can't keep a co-host.
Oh, God. All right, whatever. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
Good
start
bastard.
us off. We know what you're going to start off with. It's the Colts.
Well, I'm just going to go in chronological order here. Let's just start with the first game played tomorrow. Colts to Chiefs. Big question here. I'll start off with Anthony. Is weather going to be a factor here? They're calling for 2 to 4 inches of snow.
What's that? I lost you there for a second.
I said, let's see. We're going to start off right down chronological through the games played for the weekend. There's 4 games going on.
Okay.
Tomorrow, 4:35 p.m. Eastern Time at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. NBC. Referee's going to be John Hussey. The line's Kansas City minus 5.5. Is weather going to be a factor? Let's start with that question first.
Well, are they expecting snow? That's my question.
They're expecting snow. According to the reports this morning, it's going to start coming in right about that time. They're saying it could be flurries, could get heavier. You know, being a weatherman is like being a second baseman in the major leagues. You get it right 30% of the time, and you're in the Hall of Fame. So, getting the weather right, who knows? But
I believe that
even if it snows,
wait a second now. I took meteorology courses at Indiana State, and while I look at this,
6 months, 6 months, right?
It looks to me like Friday and Saturday a large winter storm will affect the Central States. But by the time the Colts and Chiefs kick off at Saturday, I expect a few flurries will be flying during the game, but that's about it.
Right.
But it will be cold.
So,
winds will be expected to be 6 to 12 miles per hour, and the game time temperature will be in the mid-30s. So it'll feel like it's in the 20s.
So, Anthony, go back to my question. Is weather going to be a factor here?
I don't think it's going to be a factor. I mean, how often do we see the Chiefs play in a snow game, especially Pat Mahomes? So if anything, it'll be an even game. If not, I'm giving the edge to Andrew Luck because he's at least played a professional game in the snow in his career.
Okay, yeah, and that's the question. Let's start with that question. Is Patrick Mahomes, Mike, are we going to expect a different Patrick Mahomes out of him? Is he ready for playing in the playoffs first? Is he ready for playing in the cold weather or if there is snow on the ground? Slippery ball, smaller kids, smaller hands. What happens?
I don't know.
Oh,
He's never played in a playoff game. I don't think the weather's the biggest issue here. Is just how he reacts to playing in a playoff game.
I'm going to get to that.
Some guys aren't. Weather, I think it would have to affect him because I don't think he played at Texas Tech in college. I don't think he's played in too many cold weather games. Andrew Luck has. You got to give the advantage if it's cold, if you get a little bit of snow. The advantage has to go to the Colts because they're the team that doesn't need to throw the ball to win the game.
Okay, and now the Colts are pretty much a dome team, so they play at least half their games in 72 degrees and perfect wind conditions all season long. So you guys don't think the Colts will face any issues here having to go out to Kansas City?
Well, I think what helps is the fact that I think the Chiefs were one of the worst defenses in the NFL in defending the running back, and Marlon Mack has played well. I think Marlon Mack is going to have one of his better games if the Colts are going to win, and I do think the Colts will end up winning.
Well, number one, you're not supposed to give away the end in the middle, Anthony. But
He just wants to get some Cowboys games, that's all.
When I look at this, the New Orleans Saints and the Indianapolis Colts are dome teams. But they're dome teams that are built to play outside. They play defense. They can run the ball. And if you look at it, the Colts have been good on the road this year. The Saints have been good on the road this year. And that's because they can run the ball and play defense. And in the end, the thing I think you see this week is this. With teams like Kansas City and the Rams, everybody is looking for a head coach who's under 40, who has this innovative offensive mind. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. Because in the end, the team that wins, and it goes back to football 40 years ago, is the team that is dominant up front. And the Colts are a dominant team up front. They're one of the few teams in the NFL that do have a dominant offensive line. And I think that is going to make the difference, because you can have all the spread offenses, all the crap you do, doesn't matter. Because in the end, those spread offenses, like the Houston Oilers with the run and shoot, in the 90s. Whether they played at home or away, usually they lost in the playoffs. They lost to the Chiefs and Joe Montana in, 92, 93 at home. And the thing is this, I don't even think it's a dome team. I think it's teams that are designed where 60% or 70% of their offense is through throwing the ball. Is just fooling themselves, because in the end, it catches up to you. Because at some point, you've got to be able to line up, and you've got to be able to hit somebody in the mouth. I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs are a team like that. I think the Chiefs could come out and just offensively beat the Colts and win the game. But I don't think that they can win 3 games like that, because eventually it'll catch up to them. It's kind of like Rick Pitino's Kentucky Wildcats teams in the early 90s, Steve. They'd get in a tournament, and they would shoot unconscious for the first 2 rounds. And everybody'd say, oh, they're going to win it all this year. But the fact is this, at some point, the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, those shots didn't fall. And that's all they had.
Okay, good. And we do a weekly college basketball show on Tuesdays with Brian Rao. So now that we got that out of the way and need a preview for our Tuesday basketball show, let's get back to football.
That wasn't a preview. It was a good analogy, I thought. Didn't you, Anthony?
I thought it's football genius, like you could come up with another football analogy rather than using basketball.
Well,
that's
because
okay.
I figured when I'm talking to somebody
Hang
that
on.
has...
I didn't even know Mike watched basketball.
Yeah, somebody that
doesn't
has...
watch basketball.
Well,
you know what?
Thing.
Mike doesn't watch
you know
a single
what?
game, and he gets on the show.
Little Stevie Risley played at IU. He's got a ring, and I still know more than he does, and that bothers him, because anytime we pick basketball games, who wins, Steve? I do, because I am just mentally superior to you. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead. So, what we're just saying, just get the weather thing out of the picture here. It's more likely that the weather does become inclement. It would more likely neutralize Kansas City's offense before it would neutralize Indianapolis' offense, because Indianapolis has a better ground game. Mike, does Kansas City have any kind of ground game right now? I know they lost Hunt. Do they have any kind of ground game to go with Mahomes anymore?
They got a ground game, but that ground game, I think Anthony is better at catching the ball out of the backfield. Was it Damian Williams who catches the ball out of the backfield? But if they do not run the ball successfully, I don't see how they win this game.
Well, and I'm just double-checking a piece of news here that I saw come across last night after I wrapped up the FF face-off. It might only be Damian Williams for the Chiefs because, yes, Spencer Ware, it looks like he could miss the game.
He's injured, yeah.
He could ended up missing the game. And that's their ground and pound back. Damian Williams isn't really a ground and pound back. He's a primary receiver out of the backfield who can run it a little bit between the tackles. If Spencer Ware sits out, I think the Chiefs are going to be in really big trouble.
And the other, in terms of injuries, the other injury I'm seeing right now is potentially Eric Berry, their star safety.
He's out.
He's out of practice all week, and the word is don't count on him to play.
Yeah, but let's face it, Eric Berry pretty much hasn't played all year, so I don't think that's really a loss.
But then you're going up against one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL right now, too, who can throw you open, Mike, unlike Dak Shepard.
I don't know who Dak Shepard is. Does he play for Duke?
Jesus. Oh, Dak Shepard's married to Kristen Bell. I'm sorry.
God.
I live in Hollywood.
I'll tell you what, the things I have to put up with on this show, Anthony, are just mind-boggling sometimes. Jeez.
Oh God,
Dax Shepard. Who the hell is Dax Shepard?
He's married to Kristen Bell. He's a funny comedian.
Who's Kristen Bell?
She's a smoking hot actress. She's Belle, or the girl that did Frozen.
So if you know who did you ever watch that Employee of the Month movie with Dax Shepard from like 15 years ago? I love that. Jessica Simpson.
I know.
That's a pretty good movie.
He did the remake of Chips, too. He did the remake of Chips. Was funny in hell in that, too. So he's a good actor. Sorry.
I didn't see any of those movies.
Let's get back. The Colts, the injury looks like the only serious injury for the Colts is Mike Mitchell's definitely out, and that's our safety out too. So you got two premier quarterbacks and you got two star defenders. That potentially would open it up. Am I right or wrong for our quarterbacks to potentially have field days? Whoever can handle the weather.
For the Chiefs to be able to stop the Colts, what I would do is I would double Eric Ebron all over the field. And I would jam T.Y. Hilton at the line of scrimmage. If you let T.Y. Hilton get a free release, he's going to catch the ball for 200 yards, and this game's going to be over quickly. You have to put a body on him. Now, my question is this, Anthony. When I look at this Chiefs defensive backfield, I don't even know if they have anybody that can jam him at the line.
Yeah, the Chiefs, they were 31st in total passing, and I believe 26th or 27th in the rush defense. They're going to have a really hard time, and you're bringing up Eric Ebron, you're bringing up T.Y. Hilton, but the unsung hero of this Colts team, especially down the stretch, is Dontrell Inman. Dontrell Inman's going to play in Week 16. He put up a 446 in one stat line. Week 17 in another must-win game, 577-1, and then he went absolutely bonkers last week in the playoffs against the Texans, catching all four of his targets, 53 yards, and another score. So 3 straight games, 3 straight touchdowns. Dontrell Inman's going to have a big game if the Colts end up winning this. He's going to be that sleeper play.
Yeah, well, Mike, to your favor, here's the other thing, too. In terms of a good advantage for the Colts, the Chiefs rank next to last in the NFL by allowing 5 yards per carry during the regular season. And so, they're not a good run protecting team apparently from the get-go.
Well, I think the whole key to this game is going to be the Colts offensive line versus Chris Jones and the Kansas City defensive front. Chris Jones is an outstanding player who can do some stuff on his own. The problem is with Chris Jones against this offensive line, I think this offense, they're going to have to move him around. You got to keep him away from Quentin Nelson. But the problem is, if you do that, you can double him with the other guys. And I just think this Colts offensive line they're great in protection. They're great clearing the way for runs. I think the stat I saw was Luck's only been sacked like 18 times this year. You compare that to Deshaun Watson, who was sacked 62 times this year, and it makes it even more amazing that the Texans were the team that won that division. But I think when I look at this game, the only way I see the Chiefs winning this game is if they jump out quick. If they get the ball to start the game. And this is a game where normally any game I defer. But this game, if I'm the Colts, I take the ball and I try to ram it right down their throats. And there is nothing as a coach or a player, if you've played football or you've coached football, more demoralizing than a team that keeps you on the field for 8 plays and runs 12 to 14 plays, jamming a ball right down your throat and showing you that they are physically superior to you. It's one thing if Patrick Mahomes comes out, throws 2 quick passes as a touchdown, that's not as demoralizing as being pounded on and being physically manhandled. So if I'm the Colts here, I want the ball first, and I want to just exert my superiority physically.
Well, that's what they did to Houston. They Colts, the Chiefs wanted to defer, and the Colts came right down and put a magnificent drive together right at the get-go and just marched it right in and scored. Houston had nothing for them. It wasn't like they got a big break or a penalty. They just made a drive you'd expect to come late in the second half. They did that. And, Mike, would it be fair to say that of all the units on the field in inclement weather, should it become a factor, the offensive line is usually the least guys bothered by that crap?
It always is. And the offensive line is the most important part of any football team. Right. And Pro Football Focus put a stat out that showed that Luck takes an average of 2.54 seconds to get rid of the ball. and that's outstanding. I would say the average quarterback, and this is just a guess by me, is more like the 2.8 to 2.9. So you put that offensive line with a quarterback that gets rid of the ball as quickly as Andrew Luck does, and this could be a really long day for the Chiefs.
Yeah, here's Anthony. The Chiefs are battling some history, specifically a 1-4 playoff record under Andy Reid, 6-game home playoff losing streak, and leftover nightmares from a 28-point collapse against the Colts in the 2000. I'm reading this, so 2000 postseason, where they're the number one seed for the first time since '97. Reid is 24 in career, coming off bye weeks, regular season playoffs. Also, the Chiefs have lost their last 3 nationally televised football games. Does any of that factor in?
Well, history is not on the Chiefs' side. They lost their last 5 either playoff games overall or last 5 at home.
Well, 2-7 overall at home in the history of the Chiefs.
They have a 6-game home playoff losing streak.
Yeah,
I think the Colts own a couple of those.
Yeah, 1995 and a few years.
Colts own a couple of those 6 losses.
If you factor in the Chiefs' poor history in the playoffs and then Andy Reid's poor history in these type of games, it could spell a lot of trouble.
Okay. Anything else we need to get on with this game? T.Y. Hilton had not practiced much this week, I guess, but T.Y. he's T.Y. He's all show.
Practice is overrated when you're a stud.
Exactly. Yeah, he's kind of like
T.Y. hasn't practiced in about six weeks. And
he hadn't
playing and performing. He's fine.
And I think another huge matchup here is Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce against the Colts defensive backfield. And I think what you saw with the Colts against the Texans last week is the Colts sat in the soft zone, dared Deshaun Watson to pick them apart, and he couldn't do it. I expect that you're going to see the same thing against Patrick Mahomes, because a little bit of what I talked about before on how you beat a Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes is nowhere near Lamar Jackson, by the way, but you want to keep Mahomes in the pocket, and you want to force him to beat you throwing the ball. Patrick Mahomes, to me, is a little like Ben Roethlisberger, where if you get pressure on him and allow him to get away, he extends plays to make throws, and he does it at a very good rate, unlike guys like Lamar Jackson. So I think his ability to be accurate against the Colts soft zone is going to have a lot to do with their success also.
So I agree. The biggest unknown factor here, then we would all probably agree, is Mahomes. We just don't know, because he's never done it before. We don't know which Patrick Mahomes is going to show up. If he's going to take the curse of a lot of first-year quarterbacks getting blindsided by the fact, oh my God, this is different than what I did all season long, or is he just is he the kid that poised? We don't know that yet, do we?
Look at what happened to the first-year quarterbacks last week in the playoffs. They pretty much all failed. Foles is a veteran, beats Trubisky. Lamar Jackson loses the game to Phillip Rivers. I mean, it just Watson. Watson's first playoff game, he gets beat. Who was the fourth game last week? Oh, the Seahawks, Cowboys. That's different. They'd both been there before. But the 3 quarterbacks that were in their first playoff game, all 3 got beat last week.
Yep. And, Mike, the last thing I'll say about this is that you talk about the team coming out and marching down the field on a drive. Scoring is the most demoralizing thing that could happen. I'd say playing a tough playoff game against Philadelphia, watch your kicker doink it off the tip, off the uprights twice and missed the game-winning kick at the buzzer is probably pretty freaking demoralizing, too.
No, that's season ending. That's the difference. But go ahead. So
I
assume, Steve, you picking the Colts?
Yeah. I mean, I just think the consistency of Luck is going to just be there in the running game of the Colts. But Mahomes is unknown fact to me. But, yeah, this time I'm going to pick the Colts.
Anthony?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Colts here, too. I just don't trust the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. The way I pick all games is the way I picked Clemson, Alabama last week, which was this. Clemson was better on the offensive line and the defensive line than Alabama, which to me makes them the better team. I think when you look at this, I think defensive line-wise is fairly equal. I don't think the Colts are great on defensive line. I think Chris Jones may give the Chiefs a little bit of an advantage there. But I think the Colts have the best offensive line in football. If they're not the best, they're the second best behind the Saints. So I'm going to go that way, and I'm going to go with the Colts.
Which is a kiss of death. All right. We got it. So we're all with the Colts. The Colts are the Chiefs are a 5.5 favorite. Underdog. Colts are 5.5 point underdog in the game.
Yeah.
According to Vegas. And I'll tell you what, Vegas is usually pretty close. Those guys amazingly get it right more times than they don't. Let's move on to the second game Saturday, Anthony. Why don't you take us through the Dallas Cowboys and the Rams? What can we expect here? Let's talk about the Cowboys first, since that's your heart and soul.
Yeah, I think if the Cowboys are going to have a chance in this game, and I think Ezekiel Elliott is going to have to touch the ball another 30 times. I think he got the ball this season collectively over 385 times. He caught over 70 passes. So to me, because of his effect in the passing game, I think it puts him, and we had this conversation in the show, right on par with Todd Gurley. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to have to be heavily involved, but there's going to have to be somebody else, because the Rams have a ton of playmakers on defense, and somebody else not named Ezekiel Elliott or Amari Cooper is going to have to step up. Cole Beasley, who's been a safety blanket for Dak, same as Blake Jarwin. They're both banged up. They didn't practice this week, but they haven't been ruled out yet. I think if those guys played, they can be a factor. But another player I like is the rookie Michael Gallup. Gallup has played well down the stretch since Amari Cooper came over to take some of the pressure off of Dak on the other side. Another player I want to mention is Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin played for the Rams all these years. Tavon Austin was banged up all season, but came alive last week in a wild card game on special teams with two big punt returns, one of which was called back in the first quarter, an 80-yard touchdown, but he also had a 50-plus yarder in a fourth. Tavon Austin and the special teams of the Dallas Cowboys, I think that's where they have the edge.
Okay. Mike, are the Rams defensively strong enough to handle all the firepower that the Dallas can throw at you if they're playing well, if they're coached well, which probably not a good chance of that, but
yeah. I mean, the Rams have a ton of defensive talent. They just haven't played well together this year. The Dallas Cowboys, I don't think, do have a ton of offensive talent, because I don't think you can have without a really good offensive line. I don't think the Cowboys' offensive line is probably in the middle of the pack. But you've got Ezekiel Elliott, who's an absolute stud. The Cowboys win this game with their defense. And the way they do that is they do what the Lions did against the Rams a few weeks ago. And I think the Lions kind of set the blueprint for what the Bears and the Eagles have done since. And what they did is they ignored play-action fakes. Play action is what made Jared Goff so great the first 10 weeks of the season. And you know how we talk about Dak Prescott can't throw people open? Jared Goff's got a lot of that too, because Jared Goff on play action passes was essentially better than Patrick Mahomes earlier in the season. Now he's worse than Ryan Leaf. And that's because what teams are doing to them is they're letting him fake all he wants. They don't react to the fakes. They stay in soft zones, and they force Goff to complete short passes against those soft zones and methodically work the ball down the field. Now, inherently, Jared Goff, if you watched him in college or you watch him in the NFL, is looking for the big play all the time. So, if you get deep in coverage, force him to pick you apart and maybe complete 7 passes on an 80-yard drive, he is at some point, he's either going to miss, he's going to get sacked, or he's going to get impatient and he's going to throw into coverage and he's going to get intercepted. So when I look at Jared Goff, I think this is a guy that if the Cowboys play soft zones, don't be aggressive with him, and you let DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory rush the passer without really blitzing, occasionally blitz just to give him something to look at, and you could get pressure with Gregory, Woods, Collins, Lawrence. They're going to win this game because Jared Goff You know, when I talked about Andrew Luck and how he was getting rid of the ball in like 2.4 seconds, the one thing that I looked up, because I thought this was true, because I watched the All-22 film on the NFL.com thing, because I pay for that because I'm a geek that likes to watch it. A lot of times I don't even watch the games. Just like 3 days later, I'll watch the NFL All-22. But the thing that struck me is, when you watched him early in the season, it struck me that he was probably 2.4, 2.5 seconds most of the time. And you go check Pro Football Focus, and they show the first 10 games of the season, when people bite on play action and he can get rid of the ball quick, he was averaging throwing the ball 2.5 seconds or sooner 60% of the time. Over the last 5 weeks, he's averaging about 2.8, 2.9 seconds, which to me is relative to a quarterback who can't throw a receiver open. He's holding onto the ball, waiting for somebody to get open, and when people don't bite on the play action, he's at a loss. So I think we've talked about that with Dak Prescott, but I watched Jared Goff this morning for like 2 hours. I look at these stats. I don't think he really throws guys open that well, and when you look at that, I think it's going to cause a huge problem as long as the Cowboys play a soft zone against him.
Okay.
That was pretty good.
Anthony, that's very good. Yeah, where'd you read that off of?
I didn't read it off of anything.
I'm getting ready to read something off
If
of
I
there,
did,
but
I wouldn't
okay.
have paused so many times. I'd have paused more if I was going to read.
You know how to. You've done this enough times. Anthony, Cowboys haven't won a true road playoff game in nearly 26 years, going 0-7 during a span. They've been just 3-5 outside of Arlington this year.
Anthony, real quick, what was the last road playoff win they had? Was that against the Niners in the mud and Candlestick? 92?
No, the Niners won that game. That's the one they won to go to the Super Bowl against San Diego.
1992. Remember who was not Michael Irvin, but Alvin Harper? He caught like an 80-yard pass. It was 23-20 in the mud
I
at
always
Candlestick.
thought the mud game was the next year.
No, that was 92 because you guys in 93 beat San Francisco at home. That was the game where Bernie Kosar had to come in because Aikman got hurt. And then in 94 was the 38-28 at Candlestick. That was dry weather, and that's when the Niners went on to beat the Chargers in the Super Bowl. So I think that was the last time you guys won a road playoff game or home playoff game or whatever. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, so Anthony, is this really a road game, a playoff game? Because basically, I think the Cowboys training camp's in Southern California.
Yeah.
Yeah, their camp.
They're in SoCal, and right now, I live out here. There's a lot of bitching going on out here right now, and I'm checking right now with Vivid Tickets, which is the largest. It's like one of the big ticket scalpers out here. They're predicting right now that over 1/3 of the seats sold for this game will be Cowboys fans. Over 1/3 in the Coliseum. Well, that's just what they're selling.
And that's not including who's selling what on StubHub and eBay.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's just them. And
I'm
the
seeing
people out here,
it could be a 50-50 split.
That's
giving Dallas the edge, because the Rams already don't have the best home field advantage. LA's a basketball town.
Right. And I'm just telling you, the news media out here has been bitching and concerned all week about the fact that the Cowboys are buying up every ticket they can get their hands on. They're paying premium prices for them, and they've jacked the ticket prices up because a good seat to the game right now is about $10,000 out here, if you can believe that. But welcome to L.A. But they're saying this could be pretty much a stadium that's pretty much 50-50 by the time the game's kicked off. So is this really a road game, for the Cowboys?
Just for the fact that they're not in their home building. But no, I don't think – I think this is more of a neutral site for them. I would call this like a neutral site. Like if they were to take the game to, I don't know, New Mexico, but even that would be a Cowboys advantage. They already do travel well, the Cowboys fans. So you take a game that's right in their backyard, and it's almost like a pseudo home game. Same thing when they play the Cardinals. It's all Cowboys fans, and you see this a lot with Dallas. And I live on the East Coast. I've been to plenty of, I'm an hour to an hour and a half away from Philadelphia and Giant Stadium, and I'm about 4 hours away from Washington. And I've been to all these stadiums, with the exception of Philly. If you go to a Giants game, if you go to a Redskins game against Dallas, it's all Dallas jerseys. To the point where against the Giants, they request for the fans to wear their red jerseys to differentiate the blues, because there's so much blue Cowboys jerseys in the stands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were joking about that, about how they were painting up or lighting up all the buildings in L.A. in blue, and the media last night was saying, well, that's just like favoring the Cowboys, too. They need to make them blue and gold, because if you just make them blue, half the people in town this weekend are here for the Cowboys, and they'll think they're lighting them up for them, too, because they're coming into town. So, anyway. Injuries, Anthony. Cole Beasley, what's his status?
Well, I said it earlier. Cole Beasley didn't practice all week, but hasn't been ruled out. It's never a good sign when they don't practice all week. But, if a guy like T.Y. Hilton could tough it out, Beasley's a pretty tough guy himself. But if Beasley sits, it's going to be Tavon Austin in the slot.
Prescott's been practicing fully despite an injured knee. He's got knee injury right now?
I didn't even know that.
I'm reading it right now. They're saying that on the let me see, most critically, quarterback Dak Prescott has been practicing fully this week despite an injured knee. Better research that real quick.
I mean, it can't be significant.
I
don't even. I mean,
why could it not be significant? Because I'm not going to tell you if it's significant. So I'm just going to play it off like this.
Yeah.
Who's the backup for the Cowboys?
Gurley's been limited by a knee injury on his own. But they expect him to play, but right now the reports out here is that he probably isn't going to be at 100%.
Anthony, who's the Cowboys' backup quarterback?
Clint
Longley.
Cooper Rush.
Huh?
Yeah, Cooper Rush.
Is their backup quarterback?
I think the third string quarterback for them is Jason Garrett.
I thought it was
Danny White. Cooper Rush is the backup quarterback.
That's scary, Anthony.
But Dak's knee is fine. It's fine. They're not worried. Nobody's worried about Dak's
Unless
knee.
he gets hit again. I don't know, Anthony.
I mean,
sounding kind of scary.
You better Google that real quick while we're talking.
I am.
You see nothing on it?
I see. I see an article on it, but it's from
what's the article say?
The Shreveport Times. I don't even know where that is.
Shreveport.
It's in Louisiana.
I see nothing from the team site.
Well, team's not going to say anything. If he's going to play, they're not going to tell you anything.
Yeah, they're not telling you anything either way.
Yeah. How bad is Dak Prescott hurt?
He probably had to have it amputated and just don't want anybody to know, Anthony. All right. Steve, who you picking in this one?
I tell you, this is a tough one. Cowboys are +7.
Well,
I'm going to stick with the
doubt
Cowboys.
I'm taking
the
Cowboys
won 8 of their last 9 games. Cowboys are like the Colts. They're just on a juggernaut right now.
Yeah,
and, if you do a 4-game winning streak, I get it. Or a 3-game winning streak, or you win, that's a minor streak. But when you start winning 10 of your last 11 games, or 9 of your last 10 games, or 8 of your last 9 games, you've got something going right that you're doing every week. The Rams look shaky down the road. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys in this one, and I'll tell you what, most of LA is kind of going with the Cowboys. I mean, they're fearful that the Cowboys are going to win this game.
Most of LA
out here, the chatter has been they're very afraid of this team coming in and playing because they know how hot Dallas is. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
All right, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm going to go Dallas here too.
I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet, Mike. You'll probably win.
It's not a safe bet because if I'm giving point, I think this is a 1 or 2 point game either way. The difference I
Right.
see is Aaron Donald and Wade Phillips. I'm not impressed by McVay, which most people are, and most people are hanging off his jock. I'm not that convinced. We'll see what he does now when things have gotten a little bit difficult. Plus, you've heard him question himself in the press. I think Jason Garrett's a moron, but Wade Phillips is a big boy coach, and he's got Aaron Donald. And what I brought up about the offensive line before, I think with Aaron Donald, it's you can move him around and get really good matchups against some of these Cowboys linemen. And I think Aaron Donald's going to get some pressure. I think he's going to wreck most of what Dallas wants to do. I think the game is a complete toss-up, but I'm going to go with the Rams because of Wade Phillips.
Yeah, I'm picking the Cowboys because I think Amari Cooper and Ezekiel Elliott are due for huge games.
Really?
And
I thought you just said they'd been hot. If they've been hot, why are they due for big games? Isn't the guy that's due for a big game?
Zeke has been hot, not so much Cooper. Not so much Cooper.
Cooper has not been
I mean,
hot.
come
Cooper's
on.
been quiet the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Because
He's been
Cooper
quiet.
is really not that great. He's a good receiver.
Yeah,
but there's a reason why Oakland let him go outside of the reason that Johnny Gruden's a moron.
Because they got a first-round draft pick for him.
Yeah. Actually, that was a great job. And in the end, if the Raiders don't screw that pick up, the trade could work out better for them than it did for the Cowboys.
I don't go that far. I mean, Amari, if there was no Amari Cooper on this team, Dallas would not be in the playoffs. Dallas would not have won 7 or 8 of their last 9 games.
But what's that have to do with Oakland? I mean, with Oakland, what if they end up drafting the next quarterback that wins them 3 Super Bowls? Are you still going to say Dallas got the better of the picks? Because
they're going to have a pick in the 20s. Because of where Dallas finished. So
you're right. You can't pick great players in the 20s. What round was Tom Brady picked in? They're
not going to draft a quarterback. They're going to draft him early.
Why would you do
I actually think they pick up a running back.
There is no quarterback you can draft early in this draft and it work out. There's guys you can pick in the 20s.
Coach speak, with the way the media hypes up quarterbacks, and it's a quarterback-driven league, one of these guys, look at Mariota and Jameis Winston.
I know. That's what I'm saying, though. What I'm saying is, if they had a real head coach that could draft, they could make out like bandits with this. But
do you have any faith in Mike Mayock? Because they brought Mike Mayock in as their GM.
I would probably have more faith in Mike Mayock than I would John Gruden. But I'm just telling you, quarterbacks are overvalued by ownership in the NFL and head coaches because most head coaches don't know what they're doing, and most ownership doesn't know what they're doing. We can look at the guys that were, Adam Gase got another job in the NFL immediately after failing someplace else. So it'll tell you these guys have no clue what they're doing. I'm just telling you this, the Dallas Cowboys with Jimmy Johnson, everybody thought he was nuts when he traded Herschel Walker for all those picks. But since he hit on the majority of those picks, it ended up being why the Cowboys won a few Super Bowls. And I'm telling you, the Raiders, if the Raiders had any intelligence about them, having all these draft picks should lead to Super Bowls. But it won't because he ain't Jimmy Johnson.
And so, Mike, is it Zach Taylor? Is he the offensive coordinator for the Rams?
No, he's a quarterback's coach for the Rams. He's never been a head coach.
Right.
He's called plays one time for 1 year for the Dolphins, and he failed, and he should not be a head coach in the NFL.
But he's the one your Bengals are waiting on.
No, we'll see.
I mean, they're not going to make a selection until they get a chance to talk to Zach Taylor.
Why isn't Cincinnati interviewing Chris Richard, the D-backs coach, who Miami's pursuing him pretty hard? Why not the Bengals?
Who the hell wants a
They've
D-bag?
always been a defensive coach. They've always been a defensive team.
Dude, I'm sorry. The best guy out there is the guy that keeps getting passed over. That's Todd Monken. But the fact is this. The NFL is full of guys that get coaching jobs because of who they know, who they are, or who their daddy was. And this is just another example of it. I mean, this guy that the Bengals might hire, Eric Bieniemy is not qualified. He's a running backs coach who designs a game plan but doesn't call the plays. The Taylor dude, the only time he's ever called plays, he failed. He's like 39 years old, so since he's young, we're going to go ahead and take him. But once again, I think this. You win football games up front on both sides of the ball. And I think a lot of these young guys do not understand that. They think it's more important to throw the ball over. And it is in college and high school. You could run these spread offenses, never teach your offensive lineman to block. Basically, you just get in the way. We throw the ball real quick in a screen pass or a little slant, and we act like we're a freaking genius. But in the end, you look at the Colts. The Colts don't run that crap. They have an offensive line. They have a big-time quarterback. They win. All right? The Rams,
and they have a head.
Yeah.
And they have a head coach who's a former quarterback.
And don't let
the value.
He
understands the value of an offensive line.
And don't forget this. The New Orleans Saints had Drew Brees, threw the ball all over the place, scored a lot of points over the last decade. But until they went out and they upgraded the offensive line and they got Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, they were a team that was 8-8 every year, wondering when they were going to get enough defense to win. And it wasn't the defense, because people don't understand. If you look at the best defenses, the Chicago Bears are a predominantly running team, correct? The Dallas Cowboys are a predominantly running team. If you want to have a great defense, the best way to do that is to shorten how much your defense is on the field. And when you come out in 4 wide receivers and you're throwing the ball all over the place, when things invariably break down and you get in a game where you're 3 and out, your defense gets tired and your defense eventually breaks. The way to win football games and the way to win it at any level of football is to be able to line up and punch the other man in the face. And basically these guys run offenses with ballerinas as wide receivers. They try to throw the ball, they try to be pretty, they try to be cute. But not many of them win Super Bowls. The Philadelphia Eagles last year, I mean, they did the RPO a little bit, but basically they ran play action. They ran the ball successfully with LeGarrette Blount. The New England Patriots have played that way forever. There's very few, if any, Super Bowl teams I can remember that didn't. If you remember the Rams that won Super Bowl, 34? That Rams team that won the Super Bowl had Marshall Faulk, and they ran him 25 times in that Super Bowl, and they won. 2 years later, with the same offense, but a different coach, what the hell was that coach's name, Anthony? Mike Martz. They come out, and they don't run the ball. They're so in love with throwing the ball, they decide to, just throw it all over the place. Marshall Faulk touches the ball 16 times, and they get upset by a New England team that runs the ball between the tackles, throws play action, and smacks you in the mouth on defense. Those 3 things predominantly win football games. If you watch Clemson and Alabama, Clemson ran the ball successfully. They threw play action, they got explosive plays, and they dominated the line. And that's how you win. And I think a lot of these places are just reading way too much into the Sean McVay crap.
Okay.
That's why I hope the Cowboys win, because it would prove that theory right. And I think if the Cowboys' offensive line was like it was 2 or 3 years ago, the Cowboys would blow them out.
No, I think we're underselling the fact that McVay already dropped a home playoff game last year against the Falcons.
I'm not.
And
that's
the offense,
one of my reasons there. I think the game's a toss-up. I think the only difference is he's lucky enough to have Wade Phillips. I think Wade Phillips will use Aaron Donald in ways that the Cowboys will not counteract. But then again, I think this game is a complete toss-up. So my pick of the Rams is just based solely on Wade Phillips. It has nothing to do with Sean McVay. It has nothing to do with Jason Garrett, because I don't think either one of them are very good coaches. But I know Wade Phillips is one of the best defensive coordinators to ever live.
Hey, Mike, is Wade Williams related to Dak Shepard?
I don't even know what you're talking about, because you know what? There are people with the last name of Williams in
Anthony
football.
Knows.
There's nobody named
Shepard. You ripped on me for calling Dak Prescott Dak Shepard.
Yeah, because that's stupid.
Wade Phillips,
that's
Wade
absolutely
Williams.
Stupid. Jeez. There's a big difference between somebody Dak Shepard. Can you name another great NFL player named Shepard?
No.
Yeah. The only great Shepard is the German Shepherd. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I have Australian Shepherds that will dispute that, but that's okay.
Now, German Shepherds are so much better than Australian Shepherds. German Shepherds, help people, and they're police dogs, and they sniff out crack, and your dogs just lay in a pool.
Okay, you can believe in that. All right, last question, Anthony. Randy Gregory, is he an asset, a liability, or does his strengths and weaknesses of being penalized so much neutralize his effect on the field?
It seems like there hasn't been a ton of penalties coming from Gregory in the last couple of games, so I do think he's an asset, especially when he's on, because when DeMarcus Lawrence is getting the double team and Gregory's, if he's on that day, can get to the quarterback, that's huge. Because they need somebody.
Saying is,
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, just what you're really saying is the Cowboys are letting him smoke pot again.
Oh, whatever works.
Mellow him out.
No, the last 5 games, if we're going to move on from this game, the last 5 games of the regular season since beating the Chiefs back in Week 11, the Rams are 3-2. Their 2 losses came against a hot Philly team and the Bears, who finished the regular season a combined 21-11, and that was their 2 losses. Their 3 wins were over Detroit, Arizona, and San Francisco, who finished a combined 13-35. So really, if you take those 5 games, they struggled against the 2 really good teams, and then they were really good against the bad teams, and then they had the week off with the bye. I mean, this is a really cold Rams team.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Mike, anything else in this game?
I got nothing. I think it's a toss-up. The article I wrote, I picked the Rams, so that's what a toss-up it is. I cover my bases.
I think it's a toss-up too. I'm just going to back Anthony.
I think pretty much all these games are toss-ups except for one this week, and I think that's the one we're getting to next.
We're going to the Chargers and the Patriots.
I don't know. Are we?
Yep, that's the early game on Sunday, isn't it? Yeah, the 105 game on Sunday. Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, CBS. If you want to know, Ron Tolbert is the head referee. New England's predicted to win by 4. Chargers are 9-0 in games played outside of Los Angeles, but the Patriots are the only team in the NFL with a perfect home record. Brady is 7-0 in career games against Phillip Rivers. It's a cliche, but something has to give.
Oh, now you're
Mike?
reading. What?
Yeah, no, I am reading. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not smart enough to not read. What the hell? I'm just trying to deliver good information on the radio show. I admit it, Mike.
I was just surprised you
could
read, Steve. Jeez.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Mike, are the Patriots done? I mean, are they the vaunted, fearful team that we used to think, oh, my God, if I have to go through New England, I'm toast, especially if I'm a Colt? Or the Patriots, I mean, are they vulnerable this year?
They were vulnerable last year. They lost last year. And this team's not as good as last year. The Chargers are the better team. I picked them to go to Super Bowl to start the year. The Chargers will beat the New England Patriots by double digits. And if you want to make a lot of money, bet the Chargers, take the 4 points, and you'll be real happy today. It's going to be cold weather. It's going to be Patriot weather. But that cold weather, Melvin Gordon's good. The Charger pass defense is good. I don't think that the Patriots can run the ball. The Chargers completely shut down Baltimore's run game, which was pretty much that's all they have is a run game. And they did it with 7 defensive backs on the field. The great thing about that is this. I think they could shut down the Patriots' run with 7 defensive backs on the field. But more importantly, I think they can get pressure with just their front 4. I mean, you got Bosa. You got some guys there that are huge. Sonny Michel, he could be a big part here because if they run the ball successfully, they're going to win the game. I just don't think they're going to do it. Rob Gronkowski has not been what he has been in the past. They've lost Josh Gordon. They'll be able to throw the ball short to White, Edelman. I don't think they'll be able to throw the ball deep. The Chargers win this game. And this is the game I have the least amount of question about. I think the Chargers group of corners and safeties is the deepest in the NFL. They got Casey Howard, Michael Davis, Desmond King, Adrian Phillips. The list goes on. And you've got Derwin James, who may be the defensive rookie of the year, and is probably in the conversation for defensive player of the year. So when I look at this, I think this game is a complete and utter mismatch. I think the Chargers win this game 24-13.
Okay.
But Anthony, I don't think the Patriots are done, because if Belichick and Brady come back, they get Gronk out of there, they get a tight end there, they get a couple free agents and a great draft, they could be right back here. I think this is more symbolic of the fact that Josh Gordon did not make it to the playoffs, and Rob Gronkowski is the one that got old, not Tom Brady.
What's wrong with Gronkowski?
He's old.
Just old?
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. I think this year he was like 40, 45 catches, 600-700 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns. And, the last couple games he's looked better.
I would have shut Gronk down.
Yeah.
And put him on IR with a designation to return and let him get healthy, because I think his back is bothering him like J.J. Watt's back was last year when Watt didn't play.
Yeah. I would have shut him down too, because really, with a guy like Gronk, you might as well just play him during the playoffs anyways, because he is the key to this team being great. He's the guy that stretches the field.
And they really don't have anybody else outside of, Gronk. Julian Edelman, he doesn't really stretch the field. He moves the chains. Is there another wide receiver on this team that can step up? And, if you really want to focus on somebody, how about Cordarrelle Patterson, who the Patriots love to use all over the field? I think he could come into play tomorrow, because the Patriots are going to have to score points.
Steve.
Okay. 2 questions. Anthony, I'll start with you. In the playoffs, can Belichick be outcoached?
Yes.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, we've seen it happen. He got outcoached by John Harbaugh was. He got outcoached last year in the Super Bowl.
Did he get okay? Anthony, can Belichick be outcoached?
I'm on the fence. I don't know if he can be outcoached by Anthony Lynn.
I think Anthony Lynn's a great football coach. It was a great hire. And
I'm not taking anything away from him, but you're going to Foxborough and it's Belichick.
So? John Harbaugh went there and beat him by 30 that one year.
I'm not exactly crowning Anthony Lynn and putting him on John Harbaugh's tier. I think John Harbaugh is one of the better coaches in the league.
And John Harbaugh's not on Bill Belichick's sphere.
No, but he's a step below, and I think Anthony Lynn's a step below Harbaugh.
Well, we don't know that, but we may find that out this week. I watched the Super Bowl last year, and Doug Peterson got the best of him. Doug Peterson is not on John Harbaugh's level yet either, but Doug Peterson got the best of Belichick in that one game. We're not talking about being a better coach over a season. We're talking about one game.
Okay, fair. The point I was driving at here is this: is that I think you've got to definitely give the coaching advantage to the Patriots here. I mean, I think we'd all would agree with that, correct?
I guess,
yeah. So this is going to be a game that's going to be decided probably on talent as opposed to coaching. I mean, if the Chargers are going to win, they're going to have to perform at a high level. So explain to me how we can count on Phillip Rivers when he's 0-7 playing against Brady, not beating Brady. Whenever he's faced him in a playoff game.
My question would be this. This Charger team, or my answer would be this. This Charger team is better than any of those teams he's had before, and the Patriots aren't as good. That's
okay.
Simple.
Anthony?
I mean, he was the lesser team the other 7 times. I don't think that's the case now.
Phillip Rivers in his career, he's been terrible against the Patriots and Brady in these type of games, and there always seemed to be something, whether it was a LaDainian Tomlinson injury, whether it was special teams. My issue is always going to be the kicking with the Chargers. I know Bagley's been okay, but I think they even brought in another kicker for this game.
No, they won't need a kicker. They'll win by 11.
How important, Melvin?
You got Keenan Allen. They can't cover him.
You're likely to have tough weather in New England as well, so the running games are going to factor in probably a little bit heavier. Melvin Gordon, expected to play, but they say he's far from 100%.
He has 2 bad knees, 2 bad knees and an ankle.
Right. So does that kind of neutralize, Mike, the Chargers offense a little bit?
I got 2 bad knees and an ankle too, but the thing you got to realize is this: even if cold weather,
if we played you at running back for the Chargers, they'd have no chance.
The return, oh no, they'd win easy. The return of Hunter Henry is what you're missing here. I mean, he's a tight end that the Patriots have had a hard time all year, basically defending tight ends, and if he's 100% healthy, which it looks like he is, I think Hunter Henry could play a huge part here. But it's not like the Chargers are a one-trick pony at running back either, Anthony. You got Austin Eckler, who played extremely well this season.
Yeah, I like Eckler a lot. I think his presence helps. And even Justin Jackson, if Eckler or Gordon goes down, Justin Jackson proved to be pretty effective in the regular season. But I like when you bring up Hunter Henry because the Patriots, they've struggled to stop the tight end this year. And Hunter Henry, he might be a little bit rusty because he hasn't played all season. But if the Chargers win, Hunter Henry's going to have to make an impact. Yeah, so I think the Patriots are going to do a good job shutting down or trying to shut down Keenan Allen.
Yeah, because even if you and the thing is, with Hunter Henry there, it's going to make it harder to shut down Keenan Allen. You've also got Mike Williams there, who I think people overlook. So I think there's 3 weapons there that you can really only double one of them, and they're going to pick Keenan Allen, I would think. But that lets Hunter Henry and Mike Williams open. I'm just not convinced that this Patriots defense is that good. And once again, I'll go back. Offensive and defensive line, the Chargers are better, so I'm picking the Chargers.
Okay. Here's a little tidbit for you. This is only the second time in 14 years the Patriots have been favored by 4 or fewer points for a home playoff game. The only other time it happened turned out to be a 33-14 loss to the Ravens.
Yep. And this is a similar situation, I believe.
Yep.
But
so
who you guys picking?
I'm going with New England.
I got to go with New England. I just think playing at Foxborough in crappy weather, which is probably going to be, and Belichick and Brady's just these guys. I just don't think they're ready to. I think this team finds ways to win. Rivers 0-7 against Brady. California team coming into cold weather, playing on a frozen field probably.
Second week in a row, they're going to the East.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first
and a lot of time traveling across the country. I just think the factors still tell me that New England's got one last hurrah in them, and I don't know if they'll get to the Super Bowl or not, but I'm going New England.
All right, next up.
Next up's the big game, Philadelphia at number 2, New Orleans.
That's the big game? What's the point spread on that? Like 7 or 8?
New Orleans -8.
All right.
So I think that's the game that everybody's predicting. So go ahead, Mike. What's your take on this game?
I think the Eagles can win this game. I don't think they will win this game, but I think they could. And the reason is, me and Anthony talked about this Monday. The best time to get the Saints is now. Drew Brees hasn't played a game basically in 3 weeks. A lot of their starters haven't. Philadelphia has a physical defensive front. They have to pressure Brees. And the Eagles' defensive secondary has been bad most of the year. They've been better the last 4 or 5 weeks, but the reason they've been better is because the Eagles have been getting pressure on the quarterback. So I think this all, Anthony, comes down to that front 4 of the Philadelphia Eagles and whether they can get pressure on Drew Brees or not.
Yeah, they're a high-motor team, and they're going to have to pressure Brees because their secondary is the hole on their defense. But that Saints offensive line, they're one of the better units in the NFL. Teron Armstead's banged up, but he's expected to play. I just don't see how the Eagles are going to get the job done.
Well, I give them a chance because of this. They're not playing for 3 weeks. Maybe they could come out and jump on them. And my main thing is this. Nobody gave him much of a chance against the Bears last week either. But Nick Foles is like Joe Flacco. He's good in the regular season.
Drew Brees isn't Mitchell Trubisky, though.
How do you know?
I mean, I just think it's a completely different dynamic.
Hey, remember this though.
Of a team.
Last year, the Saints were better than the Vikings. Completely outplayed the Vikings in one weird bounce or one blown coverage. Drew Brees loses to freaking Case Keenum. So I would not count the defending world champions out. And I know Anthony hates the Philadelphia Eagles, and he probably, gets a little sickness in his stomach when I say defending world champion Philadelphia Eagles.
I would love Philly to win if Dallas wins.
I know you would, because you don't have any confidence in your team going to New Orleans, which is sad. Come on, that was.
I'd rather have that home game. I'd rather have it. Would be a Dallas home game if Dallas and Philly both wins and advances to the NFC Championship. That game would be in Dallas.
Yeah, so doesn't matter. The best teams are going to win. The home field advantage means very little, and I think it has become more and more like that over the last 20 or 30 years because you don't really have loud home crowds anymore. I mean, you remember when they played games at like the Metrodome. And they had the noise meter, and they had it all. It's not like it used to be. It's just not. Home crowds are not as loud as they used to be. It's just not. I mean, most people are just going there to get drunk before the game and then pass out during the game, maybe get in a fight, get on YouTube, come home, and watch the game on video. But the home crowd, the home field advantage, when's the last time you heard a really, really loud crowd where the quarterback of the other team had trouble hearing? It's been a long time. Dallas has a crowd of 100,000. Yeah, Seattle every once in a while. But what I'm saying is this. I remember 1988 with the Bengals and through the 80s. You couldn't even hear yourself think during a Bengal playoff game or a Bengal regular season game. And I remember telling my kids about it. We had season tickets. In 2013, we finally get a home playoff game against the Chargers. And I'm all excited. I'm telling, man, you can't believe how loud it is during a playoff game compared to a regular season. And we get there, and it just wasn't. Just wasn't. We went to the Bengals-Colts playoff game in Indy. Not loud at all. I mean, there's people cheering, but not like they used to. Because I think what we've got is ticket prices. There's a few things, but ticket prices are so high that you've got to be some rich asshole that works for Pfizer to have season tickets, and you're not going to go there and paint your face and scream like a moron. You're just going to put a jersey on and go sit there patiently and watch the game. Don't you think, Anthony? Just play along with this, Anthony. Poor people like me and Anthony can't go to playoff games. It's just rich people like Steve that can.
I never went to playoff games. I always sold my playoff tickets. See, I got a big screen home.
Exactly.
So.
And when you sold them,
because
you didn't sell them.
It was fun to watch on TV.
Regular people.
You got instant replay. You got free
I
beer. You got parking was free. Popcorn was hot.
This is the thing. I totally agree. But if you could give me a crowd like the 1988 AFC Championship game, I would much rather go to that. You don't.
But you know the difference between 88 and today, Mike, is? I'll tell you what it is.
30 years?
Cell phones. There's cell phones.
Technology.
No. People are on their phones.
That's what I'm saying. Tweeting. No, people don't care as much. People don't care as much.
I'll tell you right now.
People don't care.
I think the night the Rams are playing tomorrow night, I think there's some big concert going on at the Hollywood Bowl. I guarantee you, if the Cowboys get up a touchdown or two, half the Los Angeles crowd will head to the Hollywood Bowl.
Well, if the Rams get up a couple touchdowns,
if the Cowboys get up a touchdown or two, I'm going to have my own Hollywood Bowl here in New Jersey.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does that mean you're going to smoke weed?
It's not legal in this state, so no.
Legal out here.
It's not legal here because only idiots smoke weed. Nancy Reagan said to just say no, and I have, just because she told me to.
A little tidbit. Foles is the highest-ranked playoff passer in NFL history. Does that mean anything?
Yeah. Why wouldn't it?
Well, he is. So you're going into a game where not making turnovers and mistakes counts. Foles, he's the highest-rated playoff passer.
The thing
you're going to have to beat the Eagles.
You got to remember this. He's probably only played, 5 or 6 playoff
games.
So I wouldn't read too much into it.
That's what I said is irrelevant, yeah.
Yeah, so
exactly.
It's only relevant for his contract this offseason.
Well, it's relevant because that's why I think the Eagles have somewhat of a chance here. Without him, if it was Carson Wentz, I wouldn't even give two thoughts about this game, and I'd watch a college basketball game during it because Carson Wentz does not have the intestinal fortitude to win a game like this. Nick Foles does.
The regular season matchup between the two teams, 48-7, Saints win. It was only the second most lopsided win of the 2018 season. Only 2 games this year were decided by a 40-point-plus defeat. So, first game, the Saints win by 48-7. But was Wentz playing them?
Yeah, Wentz was playing. It's not the same Eagles team. That was the Eagles team that was taking a nosedive until Foles got there. I wouldn't read too much into it, but I would read this into it. The New Orleans Saints are the best team in football. And it's going to take a team playing an almost perfect game to beat them, I think. And I think that's fair to say, isn't it, Anthony? I mean, when you look at it, with every team here, the Saints are better on the O-line. The Saints are better at quarterback. They don't have great wide receivers, but I would say similar to Dallas, they got one big-time guy and a couple guys that can do a little damage. But defensively, the Saints are very good. I just don't see any team in this playoffs that player-wise matches up with them except for the Chargers. I mean, I don't think the Chargers necessarily do.
Yeah, rarely do the best teams win those things. You know that. Rarely do the best teams end up winning these things.
I thought the Eagles.
You got to be
were
hot
the
on
best
any
team
given
last
night.
year.
I mean,
I thought the Eagles were the best team last year. I think the best team usually does win.
Okay. Well,
it's not like there's a roll of huge Super Bowl upsets. I mean, there's a few that were Super Bowl upsets. Super Bowl 3, Super Bowl 32. There's not a lot of Super Bowl upsets, Steve. The best team usually does win.
Listen, if Dallas gets through the Rams, they're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay. I hope Dallas beats the Rams then, because the Saints are going to smack the shit out of them.
Alvin Kamara still he hasn't been the same since that game, since taking that hit from Leighton Vander Esch. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
The problem is this, though. Drew Brees is still there, and Dak Prescott is still there. And I like Dak Prescott. But in a dome, in a situation like that, I'll take Drew Brees. Because you know what? A couple years ago, I thought the Cowboys were a lot better team than the Packers. Difference was, and Dak Prescott played good in that game, but the difference was Aaron Rodgers was a stud. Dak Prescott ain't never going to be a stud.
One throw. He had that one big throw. That's it.
Oh, really? So what was the final score of that game?
They lost by what? Less than a touchdown.
So what was the final score, like 10-7? Because he only had one good throw. Right?
Dak went head-to-head with Aaron Rodgers in that game, and it was that one throw to Jared Cook. Because Dallas had the lead. Dallas was about to close that game, and then Aaron Rodgers did what Aaron Rodgers did. I didn't even get fazed by it because I'm such a big fan, and I get in awe of Aaron Rodgers when he does this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. If it was any other quarterback, I would have been pissed.
Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because you got to be able to make the play. And my point is this. A guy like Dak Prescott is really good. But Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, they make those plays. I think there's a case to be made that Dak Prescott, and I think Dak Prescott outplayed Aaron Rodgers in that game. But the thing about guys like Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees and Tom Brady is you can outplay them, and they're still going to make that throw at the end. Makes sense?
Yeah, Foles is really good under pressure. I guess in the last few games, Philly's offensive line has shut down Donald, Watt, and Khalil Mack in recent weeks. And, the Eagles' front defense can change games. So, I mean, I just don't think this game is as big a cakewalk as Mike, you think it's going to be.
Huh? We're talking about the Eagles Saints, where I said I thought the game would be closer than people thought, and you said that the Saints would blow them out at the start. And now it's not going to be at a cakewalk that I think it's going to be. Anthony, am I missing something here? Did I say something I didn't say earlier?
What, that you think that the Saints should win this easily?
No, I never said the Saints should win it easily. I said that I think the Eagles have a shot at this game. I think the Saints would destroy the Cowboys, though.
All right.
I think the Saints get this by 10 points.
Yeah. Well, that's not an easy win, necessarily.
It's 2 scores.
It's 10 points. It's not that much. A blowout to me is 11. Like the Patriots Chargers. I just hope the Cowboys win this week so they can play the Saints. That'll be fun. Because then we'll have to think of a song for Anthony to sing on this show after the Saints beat him, Steve.
Yeah, I'm not into the singing thing anymore.
It wouldn't be you. It would be somebody else.
I will gladly sing if the Saints beat the Cowboys in that scenario.
Don't do that.
No,
don't do
I will
that.
sing when the Saints come marching in.
No, you'll have to sing whatever song I pick out. That's how that works, right, Steve?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Have you ever heard of the Two Live Crew, Anthony?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know much about it, but I heard it.
I was thinking about having you sing a Two Live Crew song. So, Steve's old enough; he knows what that means. So we'll see what.
No,
happens.
I don't know what Two Live Crew is.
Oh,
if
you
it's
don't
not
know
Alan
what Two Live
Jackson,
Crew is?
it's not Alan Jackson or Dolly Parton
man. I figured you'd know it.
or somebody on that genre or Tim McGraw or.
All right, Steve.
Or,
you got anything else?
No, I got the Saints in this game.
All right, I got the Saints also. So it looks like we agree on most things except for the Cowboys, Rams, and the Patriots, Chargers. We will be back Monday to see how it all worked out. Anthony will be back if Dallas wins. Steve still thinks that Anthony's going to disappear once the Cowboys are knocked out of the playoffs, though.
Never.
I know he will. He's a fair weather guy, yeah.
Anthony?
He'll not answer his phone ever. It took us 5 calls to get him this time.
Yeah, that's
for you
true.
to pick up the phone this time.
Ring. Skype didn't ring.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Remember, you can catch us tonight after the Indiana-Maryland game with the IU postgame show with myself, Steve Risley, Colin Hartman. Anthony will be back with us on Panic Monday, reviewing the divisional playoff games and taking a first look at the championship games. I want to remind everybody you can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.